At the beginning, it seems that the couple is happy, but later we discover that the queen has a rare disease that prevents her from having children. Because of this, the queen is always sad. Seeing his wife like this, the king calls the best doctors and specialists from all over the kingdom, but unfortunately, none of them can discover her mysterious disease. Even so, the king does everything to cheer up the queen. One day, he invites some circus artists to the palace. Suddenly, the queen sees that one of the artists is pregnant. This makes her envious, and she begins to break things upon returning to her chambers. When the king discovers the situation, he goes to the queen's room and promises to do anything to solve her problem. In the middle of the night, an unknown necromancer arrives at the castle, saying he can solve the queen's pregnancy problem. Upon hearing this, the king remembers that many people have tried in the past and failed, and all who failed were killed. Even so, the necromancer is confident that the queen can have a baby, but it depends on how far the king is willing to go for his queen. The king responds that he will do anything. The necromancer explains that he has many years of experience and knows a lot about nature. He also says that nature must always be in balance, and that if the king desires a new life, he must sacrifice another. Despite the strange claims, the king and queen give full support to the necromancer. Then, the necromancer describes the process. The king will have to capture a sea monster whose heart will be used to cure the queen's disease. Then, a virgin will prepare the heart that the queen will eat. Thus, the sorcerer guarantees that the queen will have a baby. When the king hears this, he agrees to hunt the sea monster immediately and begins to prepare. The next day, the king sets out on his mission. He finds the monster in one of the rivers. When the monster is sleeping, the king takes the chance to attack it. He manages to kill the beast, but gets badly injured in the fight. Soon after, he dies because of his wounds, but before dying, he takes out the monster's heart. The queen returns to the castle with the heart covered by a cloth. Later, a maid in the castle is found. As she's a virgin, she is in charge of preparing the heart. As she cooks, she feels strange and suddenly becomes pregnant. Then the queen eats the heart and finally gets pregnant. Hey, the movie that I'm going to summarize is called Tale of Tales. It's a very good movie that mixes drama, fantasy, and horror. The film is divided into 3 stories that are intertwined with each other, so I'm going to summarize them one by one to be more didactic. I invite you now to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave a like to receive the best recaps. In the next scene, the Virgin and the Queen have babies at the same time. The boys seem to be the same age. The Queen's son is called Elias, and the young woman's son is called Jonah. Later, the film advances 16 years, and now the 2 boys are adults. The Queen is happy with Elias, her son, because she thinks she has gained a new chance in life. But the 2 boys, who were born on the same day, look very much alike, are not like others. Their white hair represents a sea monster. They are very good friends, and are always together, but the Queen doesn't like this friendship. She tells her son that as a prince he cannot be friends with Jonah, the young woman's son, but Elias doesn't care what his mother says and continues to see Jonah. Later, we discover that they both have a special way of breathing underwater. In the next scene, the Queen threatens her maid, saying that if she doesn't prevent her son from meeting Elias, she and her son will be expelled from the country. But even so, the 2 seem unconcerned and meet always. They go too far one day, when Jonah wears Elias's clothes and goes to the Queen. When she discovers the truth, she decides to banish Jonah from the kingdom. Elias tries to stop him, but can't. Jonah then cuts a tree with his knife, and water begins to flow from there. He tells Elias that as long as the water is clean, he should know that Jonah is alive, and as soon as it turns red, he should understand that Jonah's life is in danger, and if it dries up, it means he died. After saying this, he leaves. Elias always checks the water to see if it has turned red. One day, the water turns red, and he realizes that something is wrong. To find Jonah, he leaves the kingdom without telling his mother. After searching a lot, Elias finally arrives at Jonah's house. He discovers that his friend Jonah married a young woman. The people there recognize him as Jonah because they have the same faces. Then he discovers that Jonah went to the forest 5 days ago and still hasn't returned. Elias decides to look for Jonah, and the Queen is very worried about him. with no other choices. She goes to talk to the necromancer again, but he asks for the same thing. If she wants her son to return, she has to give something valuable in return. The queen quickly agrees to this. In another place, Jonah is injured in a cave. A winged creature attacks him and tries to kill him. When Elias hears the screams, he finds Jonah and tries to help escape the creature. But when it goes to attack Jonah, Elias stands in front. The creature hesitates to attack him, and Elias kills it with his sword. But Elias doesn't know that the creature is his own mother. But it was the deal. One life for another. In the last scene of the story, Elias becomes the king of the kingdom, and everything ends. The second story is about a king and two older ladies called Ima and Dora. The king is a man who likes women a lot and is always surrounded by them. He drinks a lot and still hasn't found the right woman to marry, but he has power and money to choose whoever he wants. Later, we meet two older sisters who live near the palace. One of them is Dora and the other is Ima. Dora is smart and selfish, while Ima is too affectionate and shy. They rarely leave the house and are also single. Despite being elderly, they have beautiful and youthful voices. One morning, the king hears Dora singing and is enchanted by her voice. So he decides to meet her, going to their door to see her. In his mind, he thinks that Dora is young and beautiful. When he knocks on the door, the sisters begin to get nervous as they think the king will be angry if he sees what they look like. After thinking a lot, they decide on a plan. Dora asks the king to come back in a week so she can feel more comfortable. In the next scene, the sisters try to make their fingers more beautiful and youthful. Dora puts herbs on her fingers, but they still look old. Ima puts her finger in her mouth for many days and it becomes beautiful and young. A week passes and it's the day of the king's visit. When he arrives, Dora shows Ima's finger, not hers. The king is very excited and thinks he has found the love of his life and wants to see her. But the sisters are more worried because if the king discovers the truth, he might kill them. After thinking a lot, Dora proposes a condition. She will only sleep with the king if it's in total darkness, and he agrees. In the next scene, Ima glues Dora so that she looks young. At midnight, a temple guard takes Dora. In the darkness of the palace, the king sleeps with Dora, but the next morning sees that he spent the night with an old and ugly woman. Irritated, he orders his guards to throw Dora out the window. She survives the fall. In the forest, Dora sees magic when a witch finds her. The witch transforms Dora into a beautiful young woman with long hair. The next day, the king falls in love with Dora at first sight when he sees her in the forest. He takes her to the castle and decides to make her queen. Dora doesn't know how she became young, but remembers her sister Ima. She invites Ima to the wedding. When Ima arrives there, she can't believe that Dora has really changed. When Ima asks how Dora became young, she sarcastically responds that she changed her skin. Ima thought this was true and went to see a blacksmith to exchange her old skin for a necklace. The blacksmith seemed to be more foolish than Ima. He took her to the jungle, tied her to a tree, and removed all her skin. After that, Ima returned to the castle very weak and soon died. Elsewhere, the magic that made Dora young didn't last long. She began to get old again, her skin becoming full of wrinkles. When she noticed this, she fled from the castle. The story ended sadly, with Dora becoming completely old again. After this, we meet a third story, also about a king. The king was strange. His queen had died a long time ago. He had an unmarried daughter named Violet, whom he never truly loved. One day he saw an insect on his hand, sucking his blood. Instead of removing it, he left it there. Then he put the insect in a jar and let it feed on his blood every day. Over time, the little creature becomes gigantic. However, Violet, who grew up and became a beautiful young woman, always dreams of a prince. But the king, who doesn't care much about her, is always busy with his pet. One day, the creature gets sick and dies. The king is very sad, removes the creature's skin, and tells his daughter that it's time to find a husband. He decides to hold a competition, and whoever wins will marry her. Violet is happy, but also a little sad as she wanted to choose her own husband. Even so, she agrees with her father. Later, the king spreads the news of the competition throughout the kingdom. He places the creature's skin in the palace and says that whoever guesses which creature this skin belongs to will marry his daughter. Many people try, But no one gets it right, because the little creature had never gotten so big and old. At this moment, a strange monster enters the castle. He wants to enter the competition, and after thinking a little, the king allows it. The monster smells the creature's skin and discovers the correct answer is a flea. When Violet hears this, she becomes very sad and goes to the roof attempting a drastic measure. But the king stops her, saying that he cannot go back on his word. So Violet accepts the situation, having no other choice. In the next scene, the monster takes Violet far away to the mountains, where she cries for many days. One day, when the monster goes out to hunt, she sees another woman on a nearby mountain. She asks for help and tells her the whole story. The woman feels sorry and promises to return to help the next day. The woman and her family come to save Violet. As they cross, the ogre appears, but they cut the rope and he falls. Later, while they are having fun in the carriage, the ogre finds the family and kills them one by one. He chases Violet to a cave and hugs her. Violet pretends to care, but when he is distracted, she kills him with a knife. Later, Violet returns to the palace with the ogre's head and shows it to everyone. She says, "This was the husband you chose," and cries. The king is devastated and falls to his knees. In the final scene, Violet becomes the queen of the kingdom, and the movie ends. Which of the 3 stories did you enjoy the most? Write in the comments, and don't forget to activate the bell to be notified of new summaries. So until next time,